I'm actually originally a fan as opposed to having developed Assassin's Creed 1 or 2. So as soon as I saw Assassin's Creed 1, I just knew I had to work on the game because I'm a bit of a history buff myself, and to be a tourist in a city like Jerusalem or Rome or Venice or whatever, in those time periods, it's just fantastic. The location is paramount. It creates the entire game and makes the game as unique as it is.
That's very important for people to, if they are going to model, to create a city or a place, to go there and to be really immersed in the actual setting.
So we went on a trip to Istanbul in early February. It was the assistant artistic director, the sound director, the level design director for the city team, and myself.
I love traveling. I love this kind of areas, so we had a lot of fun being there.
I would say it was easily 2 weeks worth of intense tourism by my standards, just packed into 4 days. But it's super fun. I mean, hey, when you get the chance to have like this crash course in a city.
But also we had to think about the needs for the game, and we spent a long time shooting photos for textures, reference materials, and also for skylines, because we have to fake a lot of backgrounds in the game, because we are not modeling all Turkey landscapes. So it's all about Constantinople and the feeling of the city.
So on the first trip we took more than 3,500 photos, and we took about 600 videos, so that's like 6.5 hours of video. Then the second trip took another 2,500 photos. So we have 6,000 photos of the city. We have so much detail, we have so many things that you wouldn't have pictures of. It'd be interesting to put that all in a book and have nobody look at it, because it's just like not very interesting actually.
We took taxi and we went very far in the city just to feel different moods, from the historical city to the very poor area, just to feel a lot of diversity in the city, and being next to the Bosphorus, for instance, and being on the top of the hills, being in a cemetery, and have very different moods, very different settings to bring back with us.
It's always said that it's the bridge between Asia and Europe, and that is clearly what it is. That was one of the things that even surprised me a little bit. I like to travel, but I've become a bit leery of places that aren't Western, because I feel out of place, and I feel more like a tourist, and I like to fit in. I like to sit back and try and convince the locals that I belong. And Istanbul had that feeling. It had that. It felt like it was a bit of Europe, a bit of Asia, all mixed together. It's a cliche to say it, but cliche comes from a certain truth.
The feeling you have when you visit Los Angeles or Paris, it's very uniform. You really keep, in Paris you have this 18th century feeling in all the center. In Istanbul that's very contrasted. You have a lot of diversity in the landmarks, in the house eventually, also in the shape of the streets. Also the city is not flat, it's not on flat ground, it's built on 7 hills, so we have a lot of sloping streets. We discover new landscape each time we just reach the top of the hills. So that's very, very interesting, very immersive.
The other level design director was with me, and we were frequently discussing, navigational opportunities. Again, things that you wouldn't see in tourist photos, like they have the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, which is this huge, it's a mall, as it were, but historical, 500 years old. And you look up and you're like, oh, well, Ezio can run along there, and there's these convenient windows, so he can run through those windows, and we would never have noticed that relation and come up with those ideas if we hadn't been there.
In AC Games we talk a lot about the crowd, and being immersed in the Grand Bazaar with all the sellers, all the merchants, walk in the streets and feel the crowd also was very interesting, very inspiring for us.
One thing that we're trying to shoot for is a richer crowd. Just like Grand Theft Auto, you could come across things happening in the city as you're just walking around.
When we came back, it's like, okay, we have to redo that. People went crazy, but yet a couple of textures were off, so we pushed the art to the next level, and we are more accurate to the feeling of the city.
For me personally, what I found worked really well was just an intuitive feel for the city. So, a mission designer will come to me and say, oh, I have this thing going on here in this landmark. I don't really understand how it's laid out, and I just go to his desk and I say, well, this is there, and this you've turned it the wrong way, you turned it this way, and then I walk away. because I just know, I've been there and I remember how it was.
We move the player to the Constantinople of the 16th century, but it's an interpretation. We move that at the same time we stylize the city, so it's more memorable. We want to feel something that is memorable.
You know, to me, it's a bit sad when I heard about Constantinople being the setting for a game. I thought, oh, that's cool, but didn't think much of it. And I think that everybody else is like that we don't really know much about the city. And the city is actually extremely important throughout that time period, also before, like after Rome fell, it was the capital of the Roman Empire for over 1,000 years after that. So there's this crazy richness in history, but then at the same time, it's a very new, fresh, active city at the time. So there's a lot going on, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to see. So it makes it a perfect place for an Assassin's Creed.